Yes, indeed. Good to know. Now, as you saw there in our welcoming slide, we do have Professor Martin Uhomoibi. He's here with us in the studios. He's a governorship aspirant for the forthcoming Edo governorship elections that will happen this year. But I know you may also remember that he was a former permanent secretary, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he's also lecturer, so many caps he's got. So he's here with us to talk us through several things. Good morning and thank you for coming. Happy New Year to you, Prof.
Happy New Year, Chamberlain. It's great to be here. Happy New Year, my dear brother. Thank you.
Well, I wonder how some Nigerians are not happy with the way the policy, the economy, things are going on at the moment. They think that it could be better, should be better, because that's why they elected people, which, of course, you're seeking office again. But before we come to that, I know you talk to people because, I mean, you're in touch, you want to seek for #1 seat. You have an impression. They tell you things about what they feel about the current policy at the national level. What is it that you hear from them?
Well, there's no question. You don't have to be a philosopher or a politician or a pastor or whatsoever to be able to understand what's going on in our country. These are tough times. Even Mr. President himself admits that they are painful times, they are tough times. Could times have been different? Of course, yes. Maybe if we did the opposite of what we have done. The narrative must change. The narrative must be different. So what we hear are groans and pains, skyrocketing prices of goods. You want to go to the bank and use your ATM, you can't get your money. Even if your money is there, you can't get money. Even if you have money in the bank and you want to get some money, you have to pay some money to get some money. So indeed, the situation is to put it very mildly, not very good. But having stated that, what should be our position? Is it one of giving up or one of trying to change the narrative? As Nigerians, we all have a collective responsibility to make the difference. Nigeria will be built by Nigerians. No one is going to come from outside of Nigerian space to build Nigeria. So I heard reference to the Japa syndrome.
Yeah.
Some young people are so frustrated they want to get out of this place. And I say to them, my friend, think again. You get out of this place, what do you create? You create a vacuum. Where are you headed for? You probably don't know. You've read about it, you've heard about it, you've seen pictures about it, but you haven't been there, so you don't know what it is there. Is it necessarily greener there? That would be another matter to discuss. I have come to a conclusion that there is nowhere on earth that the pastures are greener than in my country, Nigeria. Though the challenge is we must all of us come together and resolve to take the narrative differently.
But what do you tell people who say, yes, we want to come together. We tried to come together, not once, not twice. In fact, they easily remind us that the last elections, after their hopes were built up, they got out there, and goodness me, they never expected what they got. And so many just feel very hard done by with what went down. And so they just want to get out.
Yes. But let me, as a historian, let me also tell you, Nigeria is 63 years old now as a country. It was conceptualized, fabricated, and put together by some alien powers and interests who were not Nigerians, for their own interests and for themselves, really, to make it easier to exploit, dominate, control, and take the best out of the Nigerian bringing together. I don't know of history, modern history, of an entity as complex and complicated as Nigeria, put together by some alien powers for their own selfish interests, that have survived 60 years of togetherness and staying together. Nigeria is a unique country and is different. That is something about the Nigerian DNA. There's something about Nigeria that is uniquely Nigerian. You will not find it even across the border. We can talk about this for a very long time, but we are a dialoguing people. Our first instinct as a DNA people, as contented people, is to dialogue. What is the problem?
Or who are you?
Who are you? And when you make noise, it's to draw attention to yourself, not to fight.
You mean what they said? Do you know who I am?
So,
on the streets.
So that's who we are. We're dialoguing people. We're not a conflict-afflicted people. And so that is very key. And that comes from the fact that we are the centers of some of the most ancient African empires and kingdoms that existed in history.
You know, Prof, let's stay with a bit of history here. When you talk about, one of your first statements was, we have to come together.
Yeah.
But the picture out there most times is a question of us against them or them against us. So we have to come together, and Jimmy alluded to that. So you see people coming together, but then another group of people is thinking, no, as someone says, it's my turn. So what happens in that kind of situation? Where is that togetherness that you're alluding to in the Nigerian spirit that has been in the DNA from way back?
Well, we are now a mixed breed. There is the elite, the political class. And political class everywhere, most of them generally, and pardon my generalization, are therefore to maximize their own interests, really, at all times. But the Nigerians that are Nigerian, your mother in the village, for example, if I go to your village today, my dear brother, and I say, I'm coming from Abuja, I have been with
Neota.
What will your mother do to me? She will jump at me and grab me and hold me. And if there's only one room in that house, I will sleep on the bed. There's only one tuber of yam to be shared. She will give it to me. Look at the elite class. They fight and they quarrel openly, but for their own interest, really. When there is wedding, they all gather together and they drink at your own expense. So a time will come that will no longer hold. To bring together a country as complex as and as diversified as we are, it cannot be done overnight. And in 63 years, I hold the view that we have done quite well, relatively well. Let me put it relatively well. We can do a lot better. But that will come about by when we begin to do things correctly and we prioritize excellence.
Let's look at that, doing things correctly. Earlier, we were looking at the laws of the land, our constitution and all that is there. Yeah. We don't have a dearth of these things. We have it all in there. But it looks as if many times we take that document, put it to one side, and we're just going ahead. Can we get back to that point? Can we get the political class who have said, we're coming to serve you, the people? Can we get them to go back to those laws and live by them?
The initiative is yours. The people have to say.
The people
have to say it. That's why you have revolutions in societies. Power in history is not given. Power is taken.
But being a dialoguing people, we've had dialogues over and over again. But the dialogues don't seem to pan out.
No, we're dialoguing people. We have dialogued, yes, and we need to dialogue more. It's the only option, really. The alternative of dialogue is war. And war brings no solution to anybody. And Nigerians are not fighters.
Prof, the policies of this government, they always say, any government says that they mean well for the people, and that the policies are aimed at ensuring that things go well. But they have to work with the civil service. And you know the impression people have of the civil service. Some people call them evil servants, that they frustrate anything and everything. You have an idea of how that works. Should we be optimistic? How should we feel? What should we expect? Because many think, look, those policies may not just see the light of day as long as what they know of the civil service subsists.
No, the civil service still remains one of the best institutions that we have.
In this country?
Yes. Let me explain. No, I'll explain to you. What you have, perhaps, what at times you have is leadership. The rules are there, clear, fantastic, really. The Civil War of Nigeria was fought by civil war. They held this country together. During the military interregnum, they were the custodians of society. So they still have that capacity, I think, to be the bastion and the last hope for our society. But when you don't have very much in your head, which is not just restricted to the civil service, but to a systemic flaw that is now endemic, getting endemic in our society, whereby the standards seem to be going down, and we do not prioritize excellence to make sure that we put the best person there, not based on sentiments of origin or whatever, but on excellence and superiority. And until you get that right, actually, across the strata of society, we're not getting anywhere. So if you want, the time Nigeria, Green Eagles, got the World Cup, they had the best 11. They were not based on one tribe or one religion. No. The same thing goes about leadership. As I always tell people, in England, if you don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, you don't stay in 10 Downing Street. Yeah, check the history. Few, very few will it happen. But in Nigeria, who are those who stay in power? They went to Oxford or Cambridge?
So
I don't know.
Maybe I should suggest, if you don't go to Unilag,
say that again.
Okay, UNN. Okay, Unibed.
UI.
Oh, you are. Oh, okay.
There's only one university in Nigeria, but let's not go down.
I ask questions for you as well.
So long as you don't go to that university that's been talked about in Benin or Togo, I think we're good. Well, Ambassador, let me begin by asking you, I mean, because one of the things that you said, the last things you said is about the civil service and everything. But in previous comments, you talked about the political class, perhaps in response to one of the questions that I asked you. We had a guest here yesterday who was talking about the need for the elites to have a consensus. He literally called everyone out, called all the young people, called all the elders, those who are in the older generation, saying, look, if you don't get this nation working immediately, it's only a matter of time, because the young people are not going to keep quiet for long. Essentially, he is asking for an elite consensus among everyone who is an elite in the business environment, in politics, in you name it. Now, if you agree with him, because I suspect you would want that kind of conversation to happen, how should it happen? How should it be initiated in a way that we can have that consensus among the elites that will work for Nigeria ultimately?
Well, that's our wish, that's our prayer. You talking? Oh, that's our wish, that's our prayer, that's our hope. And that seems to be quite reasonable to expect that if that would happen. But it seems to me euphoric and idealistic, because there are very few cases in history that I can use to substantiate that. There has to be a consensus, yes, that's ideally so. But how does that happen? There has to be leadership. Somebody has to lead. There has to be a Mandela. There has to be a Paul Kagame. There has to be someone who leads, who is ready to make the desired sacrifice, who has knowledge, competence, and integrity. There has to be someone who knows, nemo dat non quam habet. You cannot give what you do not have. But I believe the general philosophy that captures all of this in my mind is that we must never forget that you do not lament and wail in your bedroom and expect miracle to happen in your country. Power is not given. Power is taken in history. Those who in our country who are so blessed to be in the position to play the role of Mandela are sometimes waiting for power to be given to them. Please, get out of your bedroom, get on the stage. Make buffoons uncomfortable by what you do and what you say, if you have something to offer. So this is really my own take on this. Leadership is key in my view.
Well, Prof, one of the issues that makes that interesting is, I mean, it is, just as you say, idealistic, what everyone believes needs to be done. The question then is how? In a way that we do not, we're not literally calling people out to arms. You remember clearly what happened as a consequence of the annulment of the June 12 elections. Everyone believed that the military was in the wrong. But what happened eventually? people trooped to the streets, literally taking the law into their own hands. You also remember the fallout of the fuel price increase of 2012, when the people went out and we all saw what happened. It didn't really achieve the kind of thing that we wanted. So if this was to be done by whoever is well-meaning, and you've mentioned a few of them already, how? That's the question. Do they have to be political leaders? Do you think Nigerians have enough confidence in the political leaders that they should get that done? How? That's the question, Prof.
Do you just look at what has just happened? In which year was this? You had the NSAS protest. Did anybody expect that to happen? The way it happened and how it happened? After the NSAS problem, you have the Obi movement. Have you ever seen such a revolution in the history of Nigeria? The history of nations democracy is not built overnight. Nations take decades and centuries to grow. As I said, Nigeria has 6 decades, 376 ethnic nationalities, speaking over 500 languages, in one entity fabricated by an alien power. That is Nigeria defined for you. I do not expect a miracle to happen here overnight, but we have a role to build so that a country called Nigeria would grow and become what it is destined to be. And I have a thesis. The global ascendancy of Nigeria is unstoppable. The global ascendancy of Nigeria is unstoppable. And you can see it from where we were. Where were we in 1960? There was a University College Ibadan, built reluctantly in 1948. Today, how many universities do you have in Nigeria? Tell me. 2, there was no Abuja at independence. How many countries in the world, in Africa, independent Nigeria, have moved out from where the colonial masters left them and built a capital city like Abuja? Tell me who has done this with its own resources to foster unity and grow our nation. Nigeria has done it. It's unprecedented. Well, tell me, we can go on, but let me time is a limit.
This morning, part of the review of the dailies is they quoted the deputy governor of Edo State, Mr. Uhomoibi, who says he's apologized to the former governor, Shomole, and saying it is now his own turn to be governor. You want to vie for that seat as well. And so they have himself, we have several people who are in his party also angling for the same thing. You, a diplomat, an academic, now you want to put on your political hat. How do you think this is going to play out?
I'm passionately Nigerian, and that is part of the cross I carry. I cannot think and do anything un-Nigerian, and I'm so proud to be a Nigerian. I hold a doctorate degree from Oxford University. I was 27 at the time. I went to the Foreign Service, stayed 30 years in the diplomatic service, representing my country in different parts of the world, and rose to become 5 years as permanent secretary of that ministry. I was permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations in Geneva. And while there, representing my country as permanent representative, I was privileged to be elected the first African president of the United Nations Human Rights Council. And simultaneously, I was also elected by those who did not want me in the first position as president of the World Intellectual Property Organization. Not many countries produce someone who holds those 2 global positions simultaneously in the history of the UN system. I retired, and I was invited and appointed under Secretary General of the United Nations, the highest professional position in the UN system, to head the largest peacekeeping mission in the world at that time, in Darfur, Sudan. My budget was $1.5 billion. Now, I look at all of this and I say to myself, hey, where are you? Look at your country. Look at where we are. Look at my own state, for example. Can't we do better than we have done? You know that you cannot give what you do not have. Nemo dat non quam habet. Martin, you have something to give. How else can you define what has happened to you in life? What are your traditional titles? I'm the Ebusetale of Ewato Kingdom. Ewato is the place where I was born. I call it the center of the universe. Ebusetale means the word of God. 3 years ago, the Onoji of Irua, the primus inter pares among the traditional laws in my part, gave me a title, the godsend, Onosejele of Eastern Land. Martin, if you now they want a governor from Eastern, and you are the Onosejele of Eastern Land, and you have the pedigree that you have, what stops you from joining in the race?
Can you play dirty politics?
I believe, no, politics doesn't have to be dirty.
Or some of you see what they do.
No, people make it so. It doesn't have to be. But as I always say, you cannot give what you do not have. You don't have to be. Politics doesn't have to be dirty. Politics can be neat. Politics is about service. Life is about service. I am not hungry. I had a father who died in 2005. When we go abroad and we come back and we go and we see him dressed very simply, hey, Papa, do you still have money? My friend, don't ask me if I have money. I have money, only they don't use me to buy anything. He was sending a message that this life is not about accumulation. You came to this world with nothing and you will live with nothing.
What kind of message would you tell the electorate to make them swing towards picking you?
Choose what you want. Your destiny is in your own hands. If you want where you are now to continue to be the cycle, then go on. Support mercantilists, politicians. There are 3 categories of politicians. There's the philosopher king and the welfarist ones. The second one are those who use force, the coercive means. The third category are the mercantilists.
Which one are you?
Wait a minute. The mercantilists are those who have $10 billion to use, and they are ready to bring it in because it's an investment for them. When they get in there and they invest 10 billion, they will take out 100 billion of your money, and you have no choice because you have been bought. But if you are there and you want to serve, you care about the welfare of the people, you care about the future of your country and of your people, you will do differently. And that depends on the content of your mind and the philosophy that you have. I proudly belong to the first category.
Prof, we do wish you well, but we know that in our political system, there's a delegate system that gives you the ticket, first of all. You have to get that ticket. And those guys, I dare say, they think and behave differently. They don't think and behave like the electorate.
They want money, sometimes.
Most times.
Most times. Oh, there you go.
Most times. But if you allow yourself to be bought, I'm sorry, because poverty has been weaponized, then take the consequences of being a slave. That's what you become. But if you value the future of your country, if you value the future of your children, and you want all your children to be here when God calls you, and not Japa, and your house becomes vacant. That's the history of Africa from Egypt to now. When Christ was born, we just celebrated Christmas. The safest place on earth for him to be kept away from Herod was Egypt. Egypt in Africa, run by black people. The rest is history. If you want, you go to the villages now and see, houses are empty. Where are they? They have all japad. That's modern slavery. Japad syndrome is modern slavery. And you go there, that's not your place, it is clear, and you'll be treated as one who does not own the place. And your place here becomes vacant, and nature abhors vacuum. Elements will come from somewhere and take it over. That is the history of my dear continent. I will not be complicit in that. That is the choice we have to make.
Well, let's go to Ayo. He's got questions as well.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Prof, perhaps we begin with what your assessment of the political atmosphere in Edo State at this moment is. Of course, you know that the PDP is raving right there. APC is also very, very interested. And of course, the LP will also draw out his political daggers, so to speak. So what's your assessment of the political sphere, the political atmosphere in Edo State, given activities in the recent past and the build-up to the coming election in Edo State from what we had in February last year?
No, the atmosphere there is not surprising in my own thinking. I think it's quite natural for a people as politically sensitive as Edo State is, and very literate people are dominant there. You know that Edo, we have a history. The Benin Kingdom, and we are all Edo of some sort. We have long history that will match the history of kingdoms anywhere in the world. So we're very conscious of who we are, of our identity, and we're very proud of our identity. And everybody feels that he has a right and a responsibility to be part of that society and to actively participate in what goes on in that country, in that part of the country. So politics is active, alive and well in Edo State. And a lot of interest, aspirants of course, have come forward wanting to aspire to that position of governorship. And it is not surprising for me, but in the end, all our expectation is that the right thing will be done, and that the field will be plain and even for everyone to participate, and let the people decide what will happen. But as Chamberlain said earlier, there is a process of the delegates and money. That is also true. But if you want, that will be your own choice, in my view. If you want to buy, you want to be bought for 5,000 naira to make to change to vote for me, good luck to you. If you want to be bought, that's your choice. You've chosen to be a slave. But if you value your independence and you value the future of your children, you also take your decision. The decision is yours. As I said, historically, in my part of Edo State, we have what we call Adaze. Adaze, that's a gentleman. Your integrity and your pedigree. It's what counts. You remember what happened when somebody came and said, we all must vote for this person? And they told him, please, live here. This place is Benin. It's not somewhere else. And that happened. So we have a culture that still talks about dignity and the humanity of the person. And I trust that will play. Instead of allowing yourself to be bought for 5,000 naira, and for the next 8 years, you are on your own. Well, I want a society where my children will be around when God wants to call me. There are 4 last things. 4 last things. Death. We will all die. Whether you are wearing a bow tie or you are wearing a long tie. Whether you speak good English or you speak badly. The second thing after death, when God calls you at a date and time He alone knows, you will face judgment from Him. You'll be judged on 2 platforms. What you did and what you failed to do. That will determine your place in eternity, hell or heaven. Not for 1 million years or 3 million years. And when you are being judged, there is no appeal court. There's no going to court in it. It's you. And you will not be called broadcaster, professor, distinguished senator. No, you'll be called by the name you were called when you were in your mama's womb. So, humility, knowledge, competence is key. This life is about service, allowing yourself to be used, not stealing money, looting and dumping money. And you tell them that snakes ate the money.
Well, Prof, granted as that is, a number of people would wonder how that would really play out. Well, we do recall that the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, information available says that he didn't pay anyone. And of course, we also remember that in the political build-up of the past presidential election, one of the candidates said they don't give shishi. But that's for presidential levels with so many other stakes at play. How do you see that happening in Edo State? Perhaps the challenge is that of communication. Perhaps the challenge is that of how we encode the information that people will decode at their own whims, especially when you also say that poverty has been weaponized. So it generally goes to the highest bidder. Feed today, I will deal with tomorrow later. What kind of communication should be going out in that regard?
The communication that should be going out there is that you will make a difference. You will emphasize the right things. You will serve the people. You will help to build a future for their children and grandchildren. You will ensure security. You provide an enabling environment, equal opportunities for all. And the money that is allocated for you and the investment that you will attract outside will be for the people. And your pedigree should be able to speak for you as well. You will not go and impose your ideas on the people. You will learn and utilize consultation at the grassroots. Talk to the people in the local government areas. Talk to people in the streets. Talk to people in the marketplaces before you come up with ideas that are grandiose and grandiloquent and do not add value to the life of the people. I believe people know what is good, really, generally. But to have the courage to make that decision and go for what is good for them and for the future of their children is a challenge for them because they have chosen that path.
Those
you cannot lament and wail and hope that solutions will come. You must act and act correctly for the right thing to be done.
Well,
you cannot
Prof,
give what you do not have.
Yeah.
You cannot
My apologies. Those comments that you have just made, they are for the electorate, largely. How about the political structure? How about the people who will say, okay, let Professor Uhomoibi be our candidate for this election? How about the people that are going to say, okay, before we can even allow you to get this ticket, you're going to need to do some things for us? What kind of compromises are you willing to make to become governor of your state in the interest of the larger population? Because there are those who believe that the people who really hold power are very few of them, and they determine who becomes the candidate and perhaps eventually who becomes governor or who becomes governor of the state.
Well, there are certain values and principles, but you see, you cannot sit on a high horse and give instructions when you are not in a position to do so. Dialogue, agreement, consensus, negotiations, constant talking to each other and with each other and for each other is key. I cannot claim that I am omnipotent. I'm not God either. I'm in a society that is constantly evolving, that has evolved, that there are structures in place. So you must work with what you have, but at the same time, have your priorities and your focus before you. So I mean, you cannot eat your cake and have it. You have to give. Politics is about giving and taking. It's not about you just issuing directives. After all, it's a democracy. And everybody must be able to speak, and we must be able to interact, and you listen to each other, and you benefit from each other. And what is best for society is evolved. So no one is going to come there with an attitude that he knows all and he knows everything, and that his will alone must prevail. But that we can work together and build a consensus for the betterment of the society.
From the information you have, Prof, what are the potentials that an Edo State has that is yet to play out? One of the candidates in the election for a governor of Edo State, I saw a headline that says that he's promising that he can make Edo State like Switzerland or something within the first 4 or 8 years. Perhaps that speaks to potential, which many people may not see. What are the potential that you see in your state that hasn't been harnessed nor even explored over time? What are the inhibitions standing in the way of achieving those potential, and what are you going to do about them?
Actually, that aspirant is one who is talking to you, who made that statement, that Edo State can become the Switzerland of Nigeria.
I needed to bring it up that way.
I said that with not sentimentally, but really and very frankly, because I've been Nigeria's permanent representative and ambassador to that particular country that we just spoke about. Look at Edo State. Agriculture is abundant in that place. So we have a lot of potentials in the agricultural sector that can be tapped and utilized if properly. If we have industries to take care of this and create employment for our youth, that's one key area. The second area, of course, is our people have capacity, and we can have qualitative education for our youth. And skills acquisition can become part of our system, that they're able to learn skills and be able to employ even themselves. And so agriculture is also key, as I just said, agriculture and food security. Once you have a hungry person, you have an angry man at your disposal. And that's what you have in most of our societies. So if you're able to take care of food security, if you're able to bolster agriculture and help to translate this into something that makes life meaningful for our people, I believe the narrative will change. Energy and infrastructure. Look at our industries, the breweries, for example. Look at the Okpela cement factory. I don't know what is going on there, but are we getting as much as we should get from the cement factory itself? So we have many things, many assets and potentialities in Edo State that can be translated into concrete good for the benefit of the millions of people that make up that state. And we must be able to exploit and maximize the capacity and the potential which that state has, which made it one of the most advanced kingdoms in the 14th century when the Papal Bull of Demarcation was signed. There were only two countries that the Pope divided the world into, Spain and Portugal. The Oba of Benin had an envoy accredited to the King of Spain and the King of Portugal. Where were the countries that we talk about Japan today? Where were they at that time, in the 15th century or in the 14th century? But Edo was already a kingdom that the whole world took notice of.
Well, Prof, you spoke about four things, and you mentioned two, but hopefully we'll see if we can get to the other two. You also did say you'd like to see a situation where your children will be around when things are happening, but many are saying, look, but Prof, your children are not in the country at the moment. So, but what if people in Edo State say, you want to be governor, but they can refer to your house and say, no, why are they not here with us?
No, they graduate from school. I was a diplomat, for example, and that meant that I was really more outside of this country than in the country. And they graduated from there, they got first class, and they got job without even no reference from anybody. The position that I held myself, I was invited after my retirement and appointed as Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. There's no vacancy declared. There's no interview undertaken. You are appointed on your own cognizance based on merit for societies that prioritize excellence. So that is the difference in my view.
Now, to move in there, I mean, you have to have some understanding and consultation of the political structure before you venture in. Did you have any sort of consultation before you then threw your hat in the ring?
Of course, yes, I did. Substantially, yes.
You moved around the local government areas?
Of course, absolutely.
Did they say yes, they're going to give you their support?
Of course, yes.
And what about ahead of the primaries? How do you think that you'll be able to upset the other candidates?
No, we are working on that. It's work in progress. I cannot sit here and predict what will happen in politics. Politics is totally, 1 hour makes a huge difference in politics. That's one thing I have learned.
Which party are you going to?
I'm running under the PDP, the People's Democratic Party.
Wow, but that same party, they've got some persons who say, they always say that anyway, no matter what happens, they'll get the tickets. You have the legacy group, something the governor wants to, is also interested. Another group says, no, I'm a unifier, I've been with APC and PDP, I understand the terrain, so I'm the man. Everybody says they are the man in that place.
What did you expect them to say, that they are the wrong person and they are out there? No. I think it's just commonsensical that they will, and it's political as well. You cannot go there when you have no hope in yourself, when you have no confidence in yourself. So we all go there hoping that, my trust, my hope is that there should be a plain and even playing ground for everybody to play. And you should have the criteria that you want to use and let the process be transparent.
Prof, the Edo people, indeed, you talked about the Benin Kingdom, is historically a strong kingdom, known for its meticulous planning and structure and all of that. You again talked about politics as service to the people. Mm-hmm. Now, there are many others who've talked about going into politics and going to serve the people. What will make your service different from all the other service that people have offered the Edo people?
This is a man who has served his country with great distinction. This is a man who has served the world in global positions without blemish, acknowledged. This is a man who attained the highest degree possible on earth from one of the best universities in the world at the age of 27, when he comes from one little village in Edo State. This is a man who was given the highest bureaucratic or technocratic position in the UN system without interview, without vacancy declared, on his own cognizance. This is a man who is passionate about his people. This is a man who is honored by the primus inter pares of the kings of his own Esan land as the godsend of Esan land. This is a man who is honored by his own town, by his own kingdom, as the word of God, the Ebosetale of Ewato kingdom. This is a man who is honored by the Pope as a Papa Knight of St. Gregory. This is a man who is honored by the Emir of Gwandu as Dan Majen Koko. Please. I don't like singing my praises, but I'm saying that this is beyond me. And God is good. If I will be given the opportunity by my people at Edo State, we have a lot of things that we can bring to change the narrative in Edo State and make the Edo State that is truly a role model for all other states in our country.
Prof, look at these candidates. I mean, these aspirants too. They are also angling to get the seat and prevent you from taking that seat. What do you think you can do to upset all of these people?
Well, they have a right to aspire. It's a fundamental human right. I was president of the United Nations Human Rights Council. You have a right to aspire to be who you want to be. But the people have a right to decide who they want. And therefore, our collective responsibility to ensure that the grounds are even and plain for everyone to be able to aspire and that the best decision is taken.
So, Prof, if we look at that slide, there are 4 faces there. And someone will say that, yes, they're called hopefuls. How well are you known in Edo to even be considered hopeful? I'm not talking about the party platform now. Would the people even say they know Prof enough to say, this is the man we want?
Who is telling the story? Depends on who is telling the story. People say hopeful, they use the word, that's their own word. They've used it, they've been paid for it. What is the basis of the hope? Who announces the hope? Who is right? Who is the author? So, in politics also, I'm learning quite a bit, but I'm going to write a book. A big book later. I have 3 titles already, 3 chapter titles in my book.
Are you serious?
The first one is titled, In Nigerian Politics, the useless is useful, and the useful is useful. That's one chapter. The second chapter is called The Nexus between mysticism and pragmatism, as Zen 1. Don't ask me for details. The third one is Nigerian Politics, colon.
I beg.
One chance.
Oh, wow.
So just wait for the book to come out.
We'll talk about that.
This book is going to come out whether you make the office or not.
Yeah, absolutely. No. But what I've learned in Edo Politics, I didn't learn it for 3 years in Oxford. What I've learned in 1 week.
I mean, in politics here, what we see some of the politicians do, like they distribute some items to the community, sure. They build schools or roads or houses. Have you been doing that in the Ewato community?
Oh yes, I've done that. The first Jesuit university in Africa is being located in Ewato with my help. The initiative was mine. Health centers, sponsoring students in schools, scholarships to people, employing people, all these have been part of my contributions. I've never forgotten my place of birth. I'm grassrooted in my place.
And it's not something you started in the last 2-3 years?
No, certainly not. Certainly not. There's nothing in my life that is accidental.
Well, we have to go.
Sorry, Tim, just one last question, Prof. So this journey towards the #1 office is a journey you have been carrying at the back of your mind. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that I have always wanted to be a governor. Certainly not. This just happened a few years ago. But service to my people is part of my DNA.
So how many wards or local government unit did you visit for this consultation? Are you still visiting more?
Oh God, I've gone round. I've gone round the senatorial districts of my state. I've also been to a good number of wards. I can't count them.
And with those two other points, because you said you were going to talk about 4 things.
That last.
And I think it's the last 4 things.
You said the last 4 things that.
You mentioned how many? 2.
Mentioned 2 that
no,
you'll be judged.
I talked about 4 last things.
Yes.
Death, judgment,
2.
hell, and heaven. But if you're talking about what I will do, I said I will focus on youth employment and empowerment through empowerment programs. I will also focus on having qualitative education and skills acquisition. I will focus on agriculture and food security, among other things.
All right, we have to thank you for coming on, Ambassador. I think Professor Martin Uhomoibi, who's a governorship aspirant for Edo State under the PDP. He's a former permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and former, as you also heard, the Under Secretary General of the UN. Thank you for coming, and all the best to you, Prof.
Thank you, Shambelina. Thank you, my dear brother.
All right, so we're back in a moment. Don't go away.
Oh, boy.